in the E-Myth Bookkeeper, there's 7 different strategies that we talk about that are effective strategies for a bookkeeper that were for Debbie when in her business and are still, talking to our licensees, these are still effective strategies that are simple, that don't cost money.
You're listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with your host, Michael Palmer. Listen each week as inspiring guests share their secrets of success to help you increase your confidence, work smarter, and build a business you love. This episode of The Successful Bookkeeper is brought to you by PureBookkeeping.com, the proven system to grow your bookkeeping business.
Welcome back to the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. I'm your host, Michael Palmer, and today's show is going to be a fantastic one. Our returning guest, Peter Cook, is back, and we are diving deep into E-Myth Bookkeeper. This is the 5th edition of our series where we're diving deep into specific chapters within the E-Myth Bookkeeper. Peter, welcome to the podcast.
Good to be back. Thanks for having me again, Michael.
It's great to have you. And if this is the first time that you're listening to this episode and haven't listened to any of the previous episodes, you can go to the show notes and get back to the very first episode. Follow along with us. And if you don't already have E-Myth Bookkeeper, we have a very special offer from the Successful Bookkeeper and from Pure Bookkeeping, where we have various offers, program, you get the book, all sorts of great business building resources come along with it. You can get that at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com/emyth. Go check that out and get access to this wonderful book. Now, Peter, we're diving into, I think this is my favorite chapter because this is all about growth of your clients, finding great clients, and it's chapter 18, growing your bookkeeping business. Tell us about this chapter.
So this is where we get into the marketing of a bookkeeping business. And I love, we were talking about marketing before we came on air, and I love the conversation of marketing in business. I think that in a bookkeeping business, but in any business, there's a kind of a stage before you get the marketing right, and then there's a different world that you're in afterwards. Once the marketing's working in any business and you have enough leads and enough customers coming in, then it's not to say there aren't challenges after that, but it's a different world. And so helping people get the marketing right is something I really love, and I love this conversation.
And, this book was written by yourself and by Debbie Roberts, who you coached as a bookkeeper in her business for several years. And out of that, you came to help her build a very successful business, and then ended up writing E-Myth Bookkeeper with Michael Gerber, who's arguably the number one small business author on the planet, which is incredible. Mm-hmm. He's sold more books to small business owners than anyone else before. Yep. And when Debbie was growing her business, was this something? How did Debbie react to having to go find clients and the marketing side of the business?
It wasn't something she loved. Yeah, it wasn't natural for her, and she didn't see herself as a marketer, as like most bookkeepers don't. And initially she didn't have to. Like, all she needed to do when she was on her own was do a good job, and her clients did the marketing for her. She would just get new people coming, new referrals. And that was kind of fine until we started hiring other bookkeepers. And then when we wanted a bit more certainty in the growth, we needed to be a little bit more proactive in the marketing. Yeah, and where we got to was a point where I think Deb never actually kind of loved marketing, but she did get very effective at it and got good at it. And we created kind of, like how we did it with everything, created systems in the business so that we kind of laid out what she needed to do in each of the different areas where we were doing marketing.
In a way, I guess you could say she was, instead of doing marketing and selling, she was doing systems in the marketing and selling, which is the same for every piece for business. But anytime you're doing something that's maybe a challenged or a perceived, something that you perceive yourself as not being good at or that you don't like, if you switch it to something, well, gee, I do this and I know this works. This is a system. It's repeatable. It's scalable. It's proven. It changes that, I would imagine.
Yeah. I mean, the sales is a good example of that. She didn't like talking about rates or money, and always, and even kind of got to a point, like she was in some conversations, the rate that she would quote would depend on what she, like how she felt in the moment and what she thought, how she thought the client, how their business was going, which is that's obviously not optimal and not what she wanted to do. So what we did on the sales side of it was, like you say, we created a system, and that system was a presentation that she had as a PowerPoint presentation that she would go through in every sales meeting. So rather than the sales meeting just being a kind of a bit of an unstructured chat, she had this slide deck where she would go through and go, okay, these are the first slide said, here are the problems business owners face with bookkeeping. And she would go through them all, and the person she would kind of nod their head and go, oh yeah, we have that problem and we have that problem. And then she would talk about the benefits of working together and what she could provide. And then she would talk about the systems that she used and why she could promise these results. And then what the process was. She would then, do a little health check on the data file of the client. Yeah, and then there was a sheet that talked about the pricing, and then there was a page that talked about what was next. That took the anxiety out of it for Debbie because she didn't have to remember anything. All she had to do was go through the slide deck, and it also made her look. Well, she was more professional, but it made her look more professional, and it was impressive. Like if you're a client going, I'm with a professional here. I'm in safe hands. These are the benefits. This is what I want. This person gets me. And so that was, how the sales meeting went. And then we did the same with all the different marketing strategies. He said, what's the system that that Debbie can easily follow that makes it effective and takes the anxiety out of it?
Remarkable. And it has me thinking, before we get into those systems of marketing, which I know our listeners probably saying, Michael, get on with it, let's get to those systems, we want the systems. But what I love about the system of the selling is that often any technician that's really good at what they do, they love what they do. They love so a bookkeeper is going to love the process and the details of everything that they do and all the problems that can happen on a technical level.
Yeah.
And that can be a problem. It's like if you asked a watch builder what time it is, they're going to get into the details of how to build the watch and why the watch is doing all these good things, which the owner or the watch user doesn't care, just wants the time. Just like the business owner doesn't really need to know the technical aspects of bookkeeping. And in a sales situation, you can get really off track quickly. So following a system, again, another great example that you've created, which is you solve problems in the business with systems. And then the systems are your guide that help save you time, increase effectiveness, and for Debbie, a big result, reduce the anxiety or stress that was caused by it, but she was able to then get a better outcome in it. Wonderful stuff.
Yeah, look, that what you're saying about bookkeepers love doing the bookkeeping and the detail of it, but that's not useful in a sales conversation. It's like if you go to your mechanic. Mechanics love engines, love fixing cars, but that's not why we go to a mechanic. So the sales conversation, if you go to a mechanic and the mechanic says, well, I really understand engines and I love engines and I just love let me tell you about how the car. Oh, you've got a fuel injected car. Fabulous. Did you know what? And suddenly starts talking about the engine. We're lost and we don't care. All we want to know is, okay, you know enough to be able to fix it. But actually what I want is my car not to break down until I come back. I want not to be charged more than I want to be charged a fair price for what happens, and I want it to be done on time and what I charge. So the sales conversation for a mechanic shouldn't be about the detail of fixing a car. And it's the same with a bookkeeper. The sales conversation isn't about the detail of how we do the bookkeeping. It's about what are the benefits of that for a business owner.
So true, and a great analogy. And so when we talk a little bit about the marketing, you go into the systems that you created. This conversation of sales really helped Debbie convert more of the leads and prospects that were created through the marketing systems. And then you were able to convert more customers into higher paying customers on the sales side. Let's talk about those systems for marketing. Where do we start?
So like when I think about marketing, kind of zooming out for a bookkeeping business, there's some advantages for a bookkeeper. Firstly, every small business that you come across needs a bookkeeper. So it's really easy to find your market. If you're a real estate agent, your market is only somebody who's selling a house. And, maybe that's people sell a house every 5 years or every 10 years. It's not something you need all the time. So for a real estate agent, it's a bit harder to find the clients. But for a bookkeeper, it's easy. Everybody who's running a business needs a bookkeeper. Now, some of them are doing it themselves. Some of them already have somebody, but it's easy to find the people. And the other advantage is most bookkeepers also don't love marketing. So you don't have to be amazing at it to be effective. Generally, you just have to do it. If you do a bit of it, it works, and you can get the leads that you want. Because also, once you have a client, generally they're a client for a long time. It's not like you have to get somebody in the door every time for each sale. Once somebody's a client, then they're paying you every month for years.
This sounds like we need to celebrate.
Yeah. So and then there's in the E-Myth Bookkeeper, there's 7 different strategies that we talk about that are effective strategies for a bookkeeper that were for Debbie when in her business, and are still, talking to our licensees, these are still effective strategies that are simple, that don't cost money, and that work. From, telling, the first one is just telling people in your world to that this is what you do. Don't hide it. There's a tendency for some people to almost, feel that it's embarrassing to kind of share about what you're doing. But what we're saying is, no, be proud of what you do. We talked about in an earlier episode, tell everybody you're running a bookkeeping business and that you have capacity, you're open for business, and you're looking to help people. I think the next one we talk about is networking, going to small business networks. This is one that was very effective for Debbie. And again, this is good because everybody in a small business network needs a bookkeeper. And what we did was, with that, again, created a system of what are the scripts, like what are the specific conversations to have when you meet somebody at a networking event. You're asking to catch up for a coffee, not to sell then. Then what's the conversation to have when you catch up with somebody? And again, what's the system for when you actually then have the sales meeting?
That's a pause on this one here because this one, get out the old bat and hit this one right out of the park. This one, you met Debbie at a networking meeting.
Yeah.
So right there, it's effective, we know. And BNI was it a BNI?
Business Networking International. It was a BNI.
BNI. Business Networking International. We've had Ivan Meisner on the podcast a few times, who founded that. Great episodes, by the way, listener. Get there, listen to it. He's got some really great thoughts around just operating inside of a networking meeting.
Yep.
We can drop the link in the show notes for that as well. But jumping back to what you said about marketing, right? It's like now you know that everybody needs a book. So immediately you walk in the door and every single person in the room is a potential customer.
Yeah.
Which in itself is remarkable.
Yep.
And almost guaranteed many of them are going to have either an inadequate bookkeeper or be doing it themselves. All those other reasons that you said, they might not need one right now, but maybe they're trying to do it themselves, not doing a great job of it. It's taking away from what they love to do and are good at, right? So it's your opportunity to educate just that one room.
Yeah.
And if you convert one or two of those people into clients and do great work with them and help get their focus off of, the books and empower them around their finances, now all of a sudden you've created a selling army for your business.
Yeah.
Which is just, so the BNI, there's lots of different networking groups out there, but BNI, I've never belonged to a BNI, but I've attended several. And I've had the amount of business that I've either contributed to or benefited from is remarkable. And I just went to a few meetings. Just meeting these people, because they're also very ambitious people there as well. They want to be successful. They're out there. They're in it to win it. And so you're surrounding yourself now with people that are in it to win it. So love this strategy.
Beautiful.
So I absolutely love the BNI, and I could go on and on about it. We could do a couple episodes just on that, because I'm really passionate about it. And I know that what it does for many business owners, and especially bookkeepers, are often just in front of the computer, is it gets you out of your comfort zone into a great space, out of your office, around people, and it just magic happens. So I love that one. But my other really big one, favorite from the book, is the accountants. That's another huge one, which is just just an amazing strategy. And so let's talk about this one.
Yes. When one of the things that we realized in Debbie's business was that the best referrals came from accountants. When the accountant of another client realized the quality of the work that Deb was doing, they would go, okay, this is great. If they sent somebody else, that person was already a customer. Once the accountant sends the client, they're coming to say yes. And they're also coming from generally someone they're paying a higher rate, so they're ready to pay. And so when we sat down and said, all right, how do we get more referrals from accountants? The first thing Debbie tried doing was calling a whole bunch of accountants in her area. So she got out the phone book and just went through and started ringing accountants. So for those listening at home, this is what not to do. We got exactly zero. Not only did we get zero clients from that, we even got zero conversations with accountants. You couldn't get past the receptionist. And so we kind of stepped back and said, okay, what do we need to do? And what we realized was that we could only get to an accountant when we already had a client who was working with that accountant. So Debbie switched gears, and what she did was every time she got a new client from any of the other 6 strategies, one of the things on her part of her process was to find out who's the accountant and to have a conversation with the accountant, because she needed to be on the same page as the accountants. And so she'd ring the accountant and say, hi, Debbie Roberts from Bax Bookkeeping. I'm Michael's bookkeeper, and I'd love to have a conversation about how you like to get the books, any issues with Michael's business, make sure we're on the same page, find out a little bit more about your business, what's a good referral for you, and tell you about my business. And actually have the meeting. And then every time, the accountant would always take that meeting because the shared client. And then Debbie would do that in person where possible. And again, after some trial and error, we developed another presentation that she would give to the accountant. And that's been very effective. And that presentation is now in the Pure Bookkeeping system, and the Pure Bookkeeping licensees in North America and Australia are using this same presentation with the same results. And what the presentation does is says here, similar to what we talked about before, but this time it says here are the problems that accountants face around bookkeeping. And it talks about the issues when, if you don't get, and of course for accountants there's big problems if the bookkeeping's not done well. Or there's also problems about it. You get a good bookkeeper, but then they're full up and they can't get any new clients. So it lists all the problems that accountants face, and the accountants are nodding along going, yeah, this is, wow, you get our world. And then it talks about the process that we use, the systems that we follow, the benefits of a relationship with us. And what we ask for at the end is a preferred bookkeeper agreement. And this is the kind of the genius of this, is saying, all right, let's work together. And what a preferred bookkeeper is that you add us to your list of preferred bookkeepers. And we say that like it's a thing. It's not actually a thing. Nobody has a list of preferred bookkeepers, but because we say, here's part of the agreement, add us to your list of preferred bookkeepers, the accountant nods along and says, yep, okay, we'll do that. And what that means is that you'll make time to get to know us and understand our business, and where appropriate, you'll refer clients to us. And it's reciprocal, so we'll do the same. We'll get to know you, and and the accountant always kind of shakes hands on this. And so we always leave an accountant meeting with an agreement that we're going to make time to stay in touch and get to know each other, and that we're going to refer business. Now, not every accountant then refers business. Some do, some don't. But it kind of sets that up, and it sets up that expectation. And a high enough percentage do that ended up becoming the primary source of new business for Debbie. And so if we look at where most of Debbie's clients came from as she grew up to having 12 bookkeepers in the business, most of them came through accountants.
Mm. Remarkable. And that's just another piece that, again, you get one or two accountants. Those accountants know other accountants. And when you build trust with one, they are happy to refer you to who they know.
Yeah.
And so it just keeps multiplying on itself, such that there's people in our community that do not do anything but service the work that's coming from accountants. I mean, it's just like they've done nothing else. Some people, it starts out that way because they go after that conversation and set that, and there's really becomes nothing more to do. If you get into one situation with one great accountant that really is switched on, like they know exactly what kind of work they want to do, and they want to have great books because they know it saves them time, and that they can get their work done more efficiently. They fall in love with it, and so it just gets it gets great. So a fantastic one, and very, very profitable if you can get that set up. And I really want to point out that cold calling is the one to steer away from. Though they don't know you, or trust you, and so that's half the battle. But yet again, another gift: you have the clients, and you have a mutual relationship with that. I mean, it's rare that happens in other industries where you both have this mutual benefit of working with this client. All three parties win. The business owner, the accountant, and the bookkeeper win. And it's like, not everybody gets that, though. That's part of the education process, right? They may not get that. And so it's about educating everybody involved. Fantastic one. Now, on another one, let's jump over, because I know we don't have all the time in the world, because again, each one could be its own episode. We're talking about, on the similar thread, referrals.
Yes. Yeah.
How did you go about that?
So whenever we say to a room of bookkeepers, hands up who thinks referrals are the best form of new business, everyone puts their hand up. And then we say, great. So keep your hand up if you have systems in place for how to get referrals, and all the hands go down. So it's interesting. Everybody goes, yeah, this is the best form of new business, and hardly anybody does anything proactive to get referrals. And actually, there are people who, without realising it, are blocking referrals. So bookkeepers who kind of come in and see the clients, and if I'm your bookkeeper and you go, hey, Pete, how you doing? I'm like, oh, flat out, I'm busy, I'm rushing in, I'm rushing out. And that's my demeanour. Like I'm always a little bit rushed and a little bit frantic. And then your friend says to you, oh, Michael, do you know a good bookkeeper? You go, and you're about to say, yeah, I do. And then you go, well, wait a sec. Pete's always really busy. I don't think he has time for any more clients. And actually, perhaps if I give him more clients, my service is rushed already. I think, and then you say to your friend, nah, sorry, because you've got a good thing, but you want to protect it. And so what we want is that we want to be at the other end of that. We want to have systems in place to set up the expectation for referrals and to ask for referrals, and to make sure that our clients know that referring business is part of how we work, and it's not going to affect the service you get. So we talked about the sales meeting at the start. One of the bits we have at the start of that is our bookkeeping agreement, like what's our engagement letter. And one of the bits in that says that if you're happy with the service we provide, you'll consider referring other people to us. So this is like in the agreement up front, kind of the expectation is if you're our client and you're happy, you're going to look to send other people to us. And so it's a really clever piece of priming. And right from the beginning of the relationship, it's like, okay, this is how we work. As the bookkeeper, we're educating you as this is how this relationship works. If you're happy, you send other people to us. Nobody has a problem with that. When we first put that in place, Debbie's like, oh, wow, people are going to be like, people are going to be not going to want to sign that, and they're not going to be happy about that, and people are going to push back. And then we did it, and we realised, no one ever pushes back. Everybody is like, oh, okay, yep. If that's how we work together, that's how we work together.
Beautiful.
And then what we want to do is kind of when we have our check-in with our clients, kind of just no pressure, no expectation, but just regularly said, and do you know anyone who needs a good bookkeeper? We have capacity at the moment. If you know anybody who needs a good bookkeeper, please send them our way. So it's just little nudges along the way. And again, a system as part of a regular check-in that just prompts it. And again, it doesn't mean everybody is going to refer lots of business, but every little bit increases the numbers. And so you end up getting more and more new clients from your existing clients, which, along with the accountants, this is the best form of new business in a bookkeeping business. Probably in any business, actually.
It really is a very fascinating point about how your body language and the way you show up impacts someone's perspective of whether you are referable, because they're not going to want to impact their own business by saying, geez, they're doing a great job for me, but if I add one more on, will that be the case?
Yeah.
And it speaks to systems. The Pure Bookkeeping systems are all about bringing efficiencies so that the bookkeeper owner can get their time back, and then they can focus on actually having conversations in a comfortable, calm way with their owners. But as well, I've heard this very often, and I know it happens a lot, and listener, you can probably relate to this, is people go out and start doing all this marketing, and then they don't have time to even follow up with the leads that they're given.
Yes.
Because they don't have the systems in place to be able to manage the work they have, let alone the marketing. So another key piece around systems is having an efficient operation enables you to actually bring these in. And again, that just goes back to having capitalizing on what the business can do for you, because
Yep.
you have more time, energy. You can be selective with your clients, of course, get the best clients, and then expand on those clients from pricing and whatnot. So absolutely love that one. Now, there's a little piece here. I know it's come up before, and I see it all the time. We talked about it actually before we got on this conversation, is this, selling discounted money. Let's talk a little bit about paid advertising. I mean, it's not always been known as that, but there was the, get a listing in this magazine, or a listing in this other big company
Yep.
that I won't mention, big doorstopper book, where they charge a lot of money and they make lots of promises on actually getting leads and driving business for you. What's your take on all of that?
I think so. I don't recommend paid advertising, whether that's online, Facebook ads, Google ads, or in print media, or in that big book you're talking about of a particular colour, which we won't mention. Particularly when a bookkeeper is starting out. Like, I think that generally, so the kind of traditional paid advertising, being in the phone book, being in newspapers, being in print media, has never been effective. Like, that's never got a good return in our industry, and it's very easy to spend a lot of money and not get any clients from that. And we've gone through, I think, 4 of the 7 strategies in the book, and there's another 3 that the listeners can go and just get directly from the book. These all work for free. So I think given that, do these ones. You don't have to pay to get clients. And the reason, I think, kind of at a deeper level, people will kind of look to do paid advertising sometimes is to avoid actually having to have conversations and get out in the world. And people can hide behind that. And then when I think about the kind of online paid advertising, there's that's a whole other area of expertise. To do that well is like, that takes a lot of time and energy, and it isn't something you can do half an hour a week. If you want to do Facebook ads well, like, you really have to dive into that world. And I don't think it's particularly starting out. It's not what I recommend. It's maybe when your business is already turning over a few $100,000, you're not doing bookkeeping anymore. If it's something that's really interesting to you, then maybe at that point, but I don't recommend it at the start.
No. And, it's one that I've heard very many horror stories.
Yeah.
Of people paying tens of thousands of dollars for all sorts of, the list goes on. I've heard it all. And there's a lot of people out there that will promise to get clients, all sorts of different things, appointment setters, there's lots, online marketing, social media marketing, all these different things that you can pay for. And very few, I mean, I have not heard one success story around that. Now, if you get into the people that are running $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 bookkeeping firms where they've hired a firm, even that has a very low success rate. I've heard of it, the SEO optimization, all sorts of different things. I've heard a few, but I've heard way more horror stories. And so that's why these strategies that you've created, and we've seen so many of our community members be successful with them. They're free. They're traditional. They've worked 100 years ago. They still work today, and they'll work tomorrow. They're proven. And so it's like, start there. Do not go off this beaten path because there's lots of things that bite in the bushes there. And so we want to save your money here. And so when you get to that higher level and you can buy a really trusted firm that can drive and scale your business with clients, that's when you can look at that at that time. But I think it's a great thing that you've brought up, Peter, and will likely save people a lot of heartbreak, a lot of money by staying away from those. And so you can get all of those strategies inside of the E-Myth Bookkeeper, and as well a deeper take of it through the program that you'll find at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com/E-Myth. Get a copy of the book. Get in there. Lots of video, lots of content, resources that you can start to use right now, which is super exciting. Peter, this has been absolutely fantastic. We have another session coming up. We're going to have yourself and Debbie Roberts come on, and who's your co-author and the person that we've been talking through all this series that's actually had to go out there and do all this work. So she's going to tell us how big of a slave driver you've been over the years and cracking that whip to get her to do things. But we'll have that. But Peter, again, I want to thank you for your generosity and coming on the show and sharing your wisdom.
Pleasure. Thank you as always for having me, Michael.
The pleasure is all ours. And with that, we wrap another episode of the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. To learn more about today's wonderful guest and to get access to all sorts of valuable free business building resources, you can go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Until next time, goodbye.
You've been listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with Michael Palmer. For more information and to download the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit us at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Thank you for listening.